Hello everybody, welcome back. Here I am on part 2 of the video series where I'm going to show you how I take myself from being messed up to getting back to competition in 5 weeks time. In last episode, I went over kind of the background story about what happened, how I went to provincials, I hurt myself, particularly the MCL of my right knee, and how I was kind of having a hard time walking, so I wasn't able to train. But I wanted to kind of show you guys what's possible with rehabilitation, dedicated work, and having an intent focus of trying to do something like returning back to competition. So here I'm sitting, we got 4 weeks left. Last episode I told you, kind of what I've been doing to get myself back to a place where I could just walk up and down stairs or normally without a knee brace all the time. And so the start of this week, I'll start to show you, continuing from there, how am I going to strengthen and stabilize my knee? And in particular, do that in a kind of rehabilitation specific context, and then strengthen it in a sport specific context, because obviously 4 weeks isn't a lot of time. The contest is coming up, and so we kind of got to take the best of both worlds and move forward. So today I'm going to lay out a bit about how I plan to do this, and then this week I'll show you what that kind of looks like in reality. All right, let's get into it. All right, so let me take a minute and tell you about this contest, because understanding the events that I'm going to be tested on will help you understand the plan that I have to try to get there. So I'm going to compete on August 23rd in the True North True Strength contest. This contest is sanctioned by the International All-Around Weightlifting Association, which basically means it's just a bunch of any movements that have to do with lifting barbells, right? So think of all the old-time strongman barbell lifts, including the standard gym lifts we do today, like squat, bench press, deadlift, but also some strongman style ones. And so I think it's going to be a really cool event, something different than the normal strongman contest you see around Canada. So should be pretty fun. Now, to go over the events, it's actually, I don't want to say weird, just a different setup of the contest, but basically there's 2 main lifts, which are both maximum efforts, 3 attempts, like a powerlifting style event. The first one is a Bavarian deadlift, which is basically like a pin deadlift between the legs, like a sumo style deadlift off of blocks. The second one is a Hackenschmidt floor press, which is basically a floor press with the barbell, the center of the barbell or the bottom, I forget which one, is at about 15 inches off the ground. For me, that's about where my elbows touch, to give you kind of a reference point. So it's like a concentric only floor press. So those are the 2 main events. You get 3 attempts, you got to max out on them. That's basically the main contest. Then after the contest, you have a chance to break records of any of the 200 plus barbell lifts that they keep records for. So basically I've picked 3 of those that I think I could break records on, and that shouldn't do too much damage to my body. Now, given my knee, we'll have to see, but those 3 lifts that I picked are, the first one is the People's deadlift, which I think is named after Bob Peoples, and it's basically an 18-inch barbell deadlift. You have to use a mixed grip, no straps, right, like in strongman, and no suits, that kind of thing. So that's the first one that I'm going to attempt, assuming I can get the knee back to full health. The second one is a Habecker lift, which is basically like a concentric only Zercher squat. So you put the barbell on pins, you get your arms under it and stand up with it. Okay, so that's the second one. And the third one that I know I'm already really good at is the barbell press out of the rack, a push press. So that one's like a bread and butter movement for me. I've been doing it almost my whole career, off and on. So those are the 3 kind of records I'm going to try to break. And same thing with those. You get 3 attempts at each one to try to break the record. So altogether, you have 5 events and you have 5 maximum efforts. So it's actually quite a hard day if any or all of those is a true maximum effort. So as you might imagine, if you want to win the main contest or if you want to set records, you kind of probably have to choose one or the other, unless you're just insanely strong in your weight class and nobody else is there or the records aren't set. Then obviously you can kind of pull back on any of those that you'd like, right? So anyways, that's the setup for the contest. So now let me give you some thoughts about my plan. First of all, let me talk to you about rehabilitation, something that I found has worked, and probably most therapists that I've talked to also agree with me. Whenever you have something hurt, I basically set it up in my mind and on paper too, where my rehabilitation work has to come first in every training session that I do. So obviously, like I talked about last time, I found some movements that help rehabilitate my knee, or really both my knees right now. And I do those like every day regardless, because doing it more frequently, high repetitions, like I said, is gonna help me heal the ligament, not as much blood flow as your muscle, so you gotta get blood moving a lot more, at least that's what I found. So, but I set that in general whenever I have any kind of, let's say, normal training sessions. Rehab work has to come first. Then we're going to do our test, which I showed you last episode, was the 3-second eccentric, 3-second concentric barbell squat, basically a full range of motion as deep as I can go. Then we get to do the fun strength training work that's sports specific and for the contest, right? Now what that does is when you do the rehabilitation work first of all, you're doing it, if things are injured, you're doing it in the freshest state. And hopefully, as long as you're intentful, you're gonna put your maximum effort or focus intent into the rehabilitation stuff, which is what you need to be doing because things aren't healthy. And if you can't get them to healthy, then you can't compete. So that's the first thing. So you'll see that that's what I'm gonna do. Now I'm gonna do the same stuff probably that I found that works every day and every training session again. And then I'll start to sprinkle in things, which I'll go over with you as I go, that are going to add to the things I'm trying to do with my knee. So for example, I'm going to do those exercises I showed you already, and then I've already started, I'm gonna continue to add some stability work, some balance work, to try to keep my knee stable while I move the other joints or other parts of my body, right? That's really gonna help me, gain that neuromuscular control I need to try to keep my knee healthy and in stable positions while the ligament heals, okay? So that's why we're gonna do rehab work first. Then next, why are we going to do the test work next? Well, that's because I wanna test in the freshest state possible. The rehab work will be intentful, but the absolute load on my body will still be relatively low. And then I wanna test after I do the rehab work, so also my knee is hopefully in the most stable state it can be. So I'll minimize injuries, right? During the test. We'll get the test done, and then we can get into the sport-specific stuff. Now on that end, because there's 5 maximum effort events, that means I should be practicing singles, right? Because I only have 4 weeks, and that's the most sport-specific, right? So those 5 exercises that I'm going to do, I need to be practicing singles of those. Now, because my knee is injured, practicing singles of those shouldn't be an actual max effort, right? At least not right now. In this week, maybe not next week, hopefully in week 3, and then we'll see how it goes, right? So, but still the intent should be there, right? On the platform, you get 1 shot to do that 1 repetition, so you should practice how you're going to play, right? Make it perfect. So that's going to be the idea. You'll see as I go through this, it'll be really, at the start, low volumes, right? Because I want to do I want to do singles, single repetitions. I want to protect my knee, right? I don't want to damage it more, because that means not only will I not get to this contest, but I'll probably have an even longer and more treacherous rehabilitation training to do after that, and it'll just keep me from progressing overall, right? So the worst thing I can do is set myself back at this point. So that's going to be the intent, low repetition sets, maybe in this week, lots of sets, and slowly increasing the intensity if my body lets me, and slowly, dropping the number of sets. Probably after I do that in these training sessions, overall, I probably won't be super fatigued, which is not such a bad thing when I have only 4 weeks to go. So I probably won't do a lot of accessory work, just so I can try to minimize the fatigue that I'm generating. Because at this point, let's face it, I'm not going to get much stronger in 4 weeks, but there's a huge potential for me to get worse, to make my knee worse, right? So that's what the whole idea is, basically avoiding that while trying to maximize the technique, obviously maximize the stability of my knee and the loads it can tolerate and be stable under. And then we'll kind of play it by ear from there. So that hopefully that gives you my thought process on the approach I'm going to take to trying to get myself from today to the contest in 4 weeks. All right, so I finished my normal rehabilitation exercises I showed you last episode, and now I started to integrate this one, which is basically a step up and pause, but I'm gonna do it on the balls of my feet only. Why I've chosen to do this is because I started getting comfortable walking without the brace. So basically, this amount of knee flexion and extension is tolerable, doesn't feel too bad, it's not painful. I actually feel kind of stable doing lateral movements, but I was feeling instability whenever I take a step up. Okay, so what I want to do is basically train my body so that I can get used to going towards that full extension where it's a problem for me to go into hyperextension, and try to challenge my stability at the end of that range of motion. So if I step up on a step, on a box or whatever, and then I pause, I'm going to challenge my balance, which will force my body to work on knee stability in that position. So this is the next thing that I'm going to be integrating as rehabilitation work. I have been doing it for a couple days already, off and on. It feels really good. And let me show you what this looks like. So basically, I'm going to do 1 foot at a time. I'm going to step up and pause. You can see on that first rep, I actually felt a lot of laxity here. But as I go through, I've been doing sets of 10 or so on each foot. It feels really good by the end. So you see there, a lot of instability, a little more stable. Now you saw we're starting to be unstable at the hip as opposed to the knee. That one starts to feel pretty good. There we go. 5-6 reps in. My knees holding together. Obviously I'm just on the balls of my feet here to make it harder. And I'm really focusing on not letting myself go into hyperextension as I step up. So there's a set of 10 or 11, whatever I did, and my knee feels way better already from one set. So I'm going to do a few more sets of that, and then we'll get into the squat.